The golden age of America begins right now.
Donald Trump, as he begins his speech, his first speech of his term as 47th President of the United States, a statement that sets the tone for the next 4 years. Good evening from Montreal. This is episode 17 of Night Talk. I'm Gary MacDonald. Eddie?
And I'm Eddie Kalik on board a Celebrity Reflection, somewhere in the Caribbean Sea. Not exactly sure where yet.
And thanks to Elon Musk, you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Working quite nicely, and it's good that technology is available no matter where you're in the world, which is, I guess, a positive side to Elon Musk, amongst other things that may not be so positive.
Well, actually, if some of it wasn't so serious, it'd be funny. Anyway, we have a little bit of Elon Musk, the unelected president of the U.S., a little bit later on in the show. Now, a reminder, we really do want to hear from you. Now, post your comments and so we can include them in tonight's broadcast and discussions. We really do want to hear from you. All right, so let's get down to business. America's new golden age, as set out by President Trump on Monday. The new term began with Trump taking the oath of office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability. Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Shortly after the newly sworn-in president delivered his first speech that covered a wide range of issues, and here are some of the highlights.
Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. Today, I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. We are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
So we're going to Mars, or at least the U.S. is going to Mars. Eddie, there's a lot to unpack from those highlights and other issues, such as the executive orders covering everything from scrapping the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Department to federal recognition of two genders only, male and female. You were encased on a ship over the last couple of days while all of this was taking place.
Yeah.
Did you notice the reaction of people on board the ship? And if so, what sort of reaction did you see?
Well, yeah, we left out of Fort Lauderdale, and the ship itself is absolutely beautiful, great company to sail with, and there's a pretty good diversity of people on board. I'm really shocked by the amount of Canadians that are on board, and it's really nice to bump into them and chat with them. And by the same token, of course, there's a lot of American citizens on board, and we weren't sure. Manel and I were not sure what we would have been experiencing on the 20th of January. Was celebrity going to be broadcasting this on their wide screens outdoors on the lawn, or downstairs in the sports bars? Were they going to show the inauguration? I think celebrity erred on the side of caution because they do have a wide range of a customer base on board and elsewhere on other ships that are at sea right now. They did not. They chose not to show it. However, what I'll tell you is that the Trump memorabilia was out in full force. It was the 20th of January was supposed to be our classic dress night. Where you kind of dress up nice, pamper yourself, go, wife in your arm, and you go into dinner, and then you go see a show. And my wife spotted them first, but there was one fellow that walked in with USA shorts and a quasi-USA vote Trump something or other banner for a short sleeve shirt walking around the ship during soiree night. And you saw a lot of that. There were a lot of visible memorabilia for Trump supporters. Make America great again. Some individuals are wearing T-shirts that said, impeached twice, lied about twice, and yada yada, shot at, and still president of the United States T-shirts going around. A lot of MAGA hats going around. So they were, they were quite boisterous. I thought, in terms of displaying the Republican or Trumplican memorabilia. Did we get any sort of in-your-face Trumpism? Not in particular, except for one incident. Manel and I, being Montreal and Quebec citizens, we've never been discriminated in our home province with all the language issues and whatever else. But this was the first time that she and I, being captives, you would say, in sort of a Republican area of the ship, we stopped by at one point just to take a break, and my wife politely asked this gentleman who was sitting there if we can, sit down and join him. He said, "Sure, absolutely, sit down with us." And he proceeded to ask us where we're from, and my wife very proudly says, "Oh, we're Canadian." He looked her point blank in the face and said, "So, how do you feel about being the 51st state of the United States of America?"
Ouch.
And yes, I mean, direct. I mean, we really did not expect anything like that on a cruise ship, but God bless my wife. She answered in the most Canadian way possible. She looked him square in the face and asked him, "Well, that all depends." And he says, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, that all depends if you're a Trump supporter or not." And he says, "Well, you know what? I really don't talk about my political affiliations, and I have a very, very open mind." So Manel looks at him and said, "Okay, good. Well, I'll tell you what. We are both extremely, extremely proud Canadians, and I'll leave it at that." Well said. I mean, there was no animosity in her response. We suspected he was a Trump supporter. He's formerly from Chicago, but lives in Florida, and she really answered him quite well. And you know what? We had about a 15 minute conversation with him about everything other than politics. We talked about the Chicago Blackhawks, the Montreal Canadiens, and it was a cordial conversation. But we were really taken aback by a question like that from an absolute total stranger. So that was pretty much about the extent of the in your face that we experienced here. But there's a lot of T-shirts and a lot of MAGA caps on this ship. So, you know what? There hasn't been any sort of incidents or anything like that here. Yesterday we actually in the one of the shows, theater shows, Canadian, Republican, Democrat, whatever you want to, whoever, whatever walk of life, we were in the front of the ship, and just during a comedy show just before that, we basically honored a World War II veteran from the United States, 96 years of age, celebrating his birthday yesterday. And it was really nice to see. There was no Republicans, there were no Canadians, there were no Democrats in that crowd when we applauded this gentleman. And on the way out, we actually wished him congratulations, happy birthday, and thanks for your service. So that's what the world's supposed to be about. Everyone together. Color doesn't matter. And unfortunately, as you just showed on that clip, this whole thing on the DEI. When I've been catching up to my news since we've been at sea for a bit, and first thing that came to mind is that action right there, that executive order, just sent the United States back closer to the 60s than ever before. Just that one action. I think personally, it's going to send the United States in that direction. So it was unfortunate that was actually part of the top end of his agenda.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is today it came out that all DEI workers have been put on paid leave, at least for the time being, and that all web pages related to the DEI gone. So yeah, wasting no time in erasing that altogether. And ironically,
Right.
that came on Martin Luther King Day, whether it was ironic or
Yes.
whether it was intentional. I guess that once it was brought to his attention that, you're being sworn in on Martin Luther King Day, that he probably would say, what a great time to do this, and did it. And as you say, set the whole process back probably to the 60s, 70s, where we were at that point in time. Now,
Right.
don't get me wrong. Sometimes I think the whole thing around DEI is pushed a little too far. There has to be a balance overall, but there some kind of a guideline and foundation definitely is needed, so that people are not passed over because of their color, their race, or even their sexual preference. That shouldn't play into it in any way at all. However, on the other side of it, he signs the executive order where he says that we recognize, the federal government recognizes male and female. That's it. It's going to be interesting to watch what sort of feedback, and fallout comes from that, because, the first thing I thought of was, especially after some of the heated debates here in Canada over schools and the kids, declaring their sexual preference and sexuality, is what's going to happen to a lot of the kids in the U.S. when now they're faced with this. They're going to be really feeling even more so on the outside looking in, and in a lot of cases back to living in fear all the time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? One thing that struck me from all the clips you played, especially the piece about his inaugural speech. Was it really that important, top line priority for the problems in the United States to to target the DEI, to target the sexuality of people in the United States. I mean, is that really the biggest issue that the USA needs to contend with to get things moving, or as he calls it, get things moving, or to keep things moving? That wasn't, you know what, that wasn't that important that he actually speak about that during his inaugural speech. Granted, it would end up coming up as an issue at some particular point for Mr. Trump. I mean, he obviously was on script, did not veer off script at all. But during his off script remarks, which are usually very entertaining after the fact, he would have brought up these two issues. But I think the venue and the place to do that was wrong, and it was a classless hack by Mr. Trump to actually bring those two things up in the inaugural speech. Because you know what, it wasn't just Americans watching this. A lot of people around the world were watching this, and they're probably scratching their heads saying, what the hell's going on there, right? Even after the fact, there was a huge reaction globally to Trump's election in the first place. We all continuously just scratch our heads in terms of the things he says and continues to do. So I was disappointed for humanity about those two things being a key issue for him to bring up during Inauguration Day.
Now, the other thing is when he issued the pardon for most of the people who were jailed as a result of the January 6th uprising. And what I found really interesting yesterday and today, some of the news networks have contacted or have come in contact with some of these people who were pardoned, who said, you know what? I entered a guilty plea because I was guilty. I don't need this pardon. I shouldn't have it. And one individual said, you know, like, I really didn't need this to dredge up everything again. I was guilty. I shouldn't have done what I did. I shouldn't have been there. And I don't need this. And I heard tonight, and I haven't seen it scroll by, but there's been so many other things happening today. It was a busy news day. But apparently, at least one of the people who was released Monday night, early yesterday, and I think he was in for like a more violent related charge on January 6th. Anyway, he was picked up this morning, I think it was, and arrested because he was carrying a concealed weapon. So right back in. And this is what, you know, he's talking about all of the criminals and, you know, insane people that have come in to the U.S. illegally, and, you know, he's going to clean them out. But what did he do, on the other hand, with the stroke of a pen, and let all of these yahoos, especially the ones who were in there for the violent crimes, and there were a lot of violent crimes committed on January 6th, he lets them loose. Now,
well,
granted,
you know, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Some of them, like this guy that apparently got picked up today, will end up back in jail. There's no question.
Right.
But what are you thinking? And he called them hostages. He's been calling them hostages.
Yeah.
This is the first 2 days, 3 days of the presidency. We have, I think Dave Cochran on Power and Politics tonight said something like 1,450 some odd days left of this insanity.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? You know, during his speech, he'd mentioned about you know, his work with calling the immigration illegals. He called them criminals, millions of criminals. Well, come on, you know what? Let's say you have 1 million of them that cross the border, even if that. I mean, everything is millions to him, right? Millions of people died in the Ukraine-Russian war. Millions of people are dying over in the Middle East, and millions of people are all those millions of people. Anyway, forget about the numbers. So, you know, let's say there was 1 million people that crossed the border from Mexico into the United States. You know what, Gary? I don't think it would be very difficult for you and I to take, you know, every Mexican or every illegal immigrant who had eligibility to work in the United States and make a living, For every one of what Trump would call a criminal crossing the border, I'm sure we can easily scrape up 5 criminals that were born in the United States. So this whole thing about labeling everyone who crosses a border a criminal, is absolutely ridiculous. But herein lies the danger. You and I know that the majority of these individuals are not criminals. These are human beings that are trying to make the best in life for themselves and their families. Okay, usually ostracized by their governments or whatever civil unrest is going on. They are still human beings. Okay, I would bet my next month's paycheck, which isn't very much on retirement, I would bet my next month's paycheck that 99% of these individuals are contributing to society in a very, very positive way. They're working, they're contributing to the American economy, probably doing the most worst jobs that any common American would even look at, but they're still doing it and keeping the country on its feet. So it really hurts me. I'm not going to say irk, but it really hurts me when the so-called leader of the free world openly calls everyone crossing the border a criminal. You know what? You got people working for you. Come up with something else. Don't call them criminals because they're not criminals. Yes, you know what? There is a criminal element that might cross the border, but don't be fooled. There are more criminal elements in the United States that are being exported elsewhere to other countries. So you know what? Let's call a spade here. So it's really hurtful when you hear stuff like that.
I I listened to the list as he went through it in his speech, and it just amazed me. And then he's got all of the he signed some of the executive orders on the stage after his parade indoors at the Capital One Center. Then he went back to the Oval Office to sign some more, and it was at that point a bit of a photo op, and some of the reporters were allowed in and could question him on different things. But I mean, he just the number of executive orders he signed in the last 2 days, I'm sure, has to be some kind of a record. Now, whether all of them will hold up, I understand that there are some of them that are going to be challenged in court, and challenge. Some of the states are going to challenge some of the executive orders in court, so they may not hold up. He doesn't care. He got his point across, and at least wins for a few days or a couple of months or weeks, whatever it takes for these cases to go through the court system at the time. But man, oh man, there are so many other important things he could have been focused on, and really used it as a time to not only appeal to his base and make them feel good about themselves on day one, but also appeal to anyone else who's not a supporter, not in his base, and try to bring unity back to the country, because the country, like our country, is divided, totally divided. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take a while for any kind of attempt to unify the country, and I don't know if they can at the moment. I think there's a number of wounds as a result of it. So
yeah,
the other thing is, did you see today? He, how he's always said he could end the war in the Ukraine in 24 hours. Well, and at one point he said, I'll do that on day one. Well, it didn't happen, and that's fine. But apparently today he said to Russia, said to Putin, end the war in the Ukraine. And what he's threatening Russia with is, guess what? Tariffs and taxes. If Putin doesn't bring an end to the war. Like he makes no bones about it that tariff is his favorite word in the dictionary. So.
Well, I mean, tariffs. All right. So how many American, I'm not exactly sure what they're doing in terms of major trading between the two countries, especially with, some of the sanctions that are being imposed on him by the existing government or previous government under Biden. Um, what kind of tariffs can he possibly put on Comrade Putin that's going to impact the capability of Americans to conduct business? How many American companies actually trade with Russia? I really like to know. It's probably a research question we can pursue after the show, but I don't know. I think that would be a muted threat, and I don't think Comrade Putin would take him seriously anyway.
Well, I would suggest there aren't that many American companies or even Canadian companies doing business with Russia because
No.
of the sanctions that were imposed at the beginning of the war.
So he's just banging a drum loudly from what I'm gathering out of this.
Well, it would appear that way. Anyway, if I can wake my mouse up. Where'd it go? There we go. Let's bring up a comment here.
Oh.
From Earl. There are only two genders. A person can believe what they want and shouldn't be ostracized for their belief, but others shouldn't have to believe their beliefs. I've worked with a percentage of people that are picked by gender or ethnicity. A certain amount of them are unsafe and not capable of doing the job. I believe you shouldn't be denied a job because of sex or race, but in turn shouldn't be hired because of those reasons. If you aren't the most competent, you shouldn't get the job. Totally agree. I see where you're coming from on that one, Earl. That's what I was getting at when we were talking about it a few minutes ago. Those were what I was trying to say. Like, I understand there's a need for an outline, a foundation, some guidelines, but by the same token, a lot of companies really sort of implemented a quota. And, a hiring quota does not bode well in the long run because you're not getting the best qualified people. I know when I was in the position of hiring people, I didn't care what your race was, your color, your gender. I didn't care about anything as long as you could do the job and you had the fire in the belly to do the job.
Same here.
Yep. But I do know that there are some companies who took it maybe too far, or they misinterpreted what was trying to be promoted, or who knows what was behind it all. But there were cases where it was applied in the wrong manner instead of being more of a guideline and being open to hiring anyone as long as they were qualified. So with that, we should move along because there are so many other things, and we've already chewed up half an hour already. Anyhow.
Oh my.
Later in the day, as President Trump continued to sign executive orders in the Oval Office, he managed another shot. Are you ready? He managed another shot at Justin Trudeau.
Who is going to be the first foreign leader that you plan to meet, or who are you going to call tomorrow on your first day?
I've already been meeting people. I've been meeting them. I've been talking to them. I met with Prime Minister Trudeau, who I call Governor Trudeau.
Oh. No. Oh.
He's like a dog with a bone. Like a dog with a bone.
Oh my goodness. You know what? You asked me before about what Manel and I were experiencing on the ship here, full of a lot of American citizens, a lot of Trump supporters and whatnot. I forget what happened. Manel and I were going into the buffet area and we bumped into an American lady, and I don't know how the conversation came about, but she basically was speaking about the 20th of January inauguration day, and she had said something to the effect of, oh my, today is not a good day. It's not a good day for the country, not a good day for the country. And now that you bring up Mr. Trudeau, she had then said, you know what? I wish we had a Mr. Trudeau running our country. better than what we have now, better than what we have now. So obviously there's a lot of American citizens that are very concerned about what's going on right now. And my comment is being triggered by what I just saw. And you're absolutely right. This is just a dog with a bone. And you know what? It's been a bone that's been hanging around way too long, and it's already festering with whatever, and he still continues to chew on it. Like, oh man, that's I don't know why he just can't give that up. He just cannot give that
Because
up.
he has Trudeau where he wants him, on the ropes.
Yeah, yeah.
And so why give up? But
What a shame.
yeah, now are you waiting for this? We're not quite finished with the US side of things. While the new president was busy, the unelected president, Elon, was on the other side of town warming up a crowd waiting for the inauguration parade to
Yes! This is what victory feels like. Yeah! And we're gonna take Doge to Mars. I mean, can you imagine how awesome it will be to have American astronauts plant the flag on another planet for the first time? Bam! Bam! Yeah!
Holy smokes! I had not
Well,
seen
he certainly
that.
had the crowd warmed up. But what was that dance? That looks like me trying to dance at a party.
And I've seen you dance, Gary.
Yeah, well, now you know. Maybe that's why I related to that particular clip. But we have more because following as part of that overall speech, he pulled this maneuver.
You know, there are elections that come and go. Some elections are, important. Some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
Whoa.
Yeah, social media lit up like a Christmas tree with like all sorts of thoughts on that maneuver. He has denied it was anything even related to the Nazi salute. He said it was just basically, just give it up. Like, why? Because every time something happens, you have to relate it to this. So, was he enthusiastic? I don't know. I think the most telling thing that caught my attention beyond the salute was how he said the line about saving civilization. This election has saved civilization.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, really? How does it save civilization? And
when you say civilization, he's not just speaking for the American population. He's
right.
speaking about things globally here. And what are you trying to say, Elon? Like, because we elected Mr. Trump, he's now going to be saving civilization somehow?
Yeah, there's
I don't know.
no mention of the free world, just civilization. And when I heard that,
Right.
despite him saying, don't be so sensitive and can we just let go of any Nazi significance? First you see that salute, arm raised. And then you hear that comment. The comment to me was even more disturbing than just, what he did with his arm.
Yeah.
when you think about it. And anyhow, there was a lot of heat on social media about that whole thing. However, like everything else in the last 24 hours, as we used to say in the business, the story really didn't have a leg, and it's gone.
Yeah.
In a 24-hour news cycle. So we're quickly running out of time here. So let's focus on the significant issue Trump is pushing when it comes to his neighbors, Mexico and Canada. Of course, he is threatening to slap a 25% tariff on all Mexican and Canadian goods entering the U.S. Now, originally he said the tariffs would be implemented on his first day in office. That didn't happen. Later in the day, as he was signing executive orders in the Oval Office, he had this to say.
Where are you thinking on tariffs on Mexico, given these actions you're signing on the border?
Well, we're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you planning on giving notice of that?
I think we'll do it February 1st.
25% on both, sir.
Sir,
On each.
So he's sticking to his guns, but now the timeline has moved, and really, that's part of his negotiating tactics, I think, is just, create chaos and keep them guessing till you just keep hammering away till you get what you want. But that's the latest, February the 1st. There was talk about having some kind of a study, but then an 11-day time period came in for the study, and now on Monday night in the Oval Office,
right.
He said the 1st of February, which is next week, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
10 days from now, I think, yeah.
Now, meantime, Prime Minister Trudeau and his cabinet, along with his recently announced Special Advisory Council on U.S. Relations, well, they've been meeting at a Montebello resort. And I'll have more to say about that after, if we have enough time at the end of the show. And what were they doing? Well, they were discussing strategy and response to Trump's, I'm going to have trouble until Trudeau goes, Trump's threats along the way.
If the president does choose to proceed with tariffs on Canada, Canada will respond. And everything is on the table. Working in unison with Team Canada, as Team Canada, with business leaders, organized labor, civil society, Indigenous leaders, and premiers from coast to coast to coast, we are prepared for every possible scenario.
So we are prepared for every possible scenario. Now, in the meantime, in his final days as Prime Minister, he's suggesting, are you ready for this? In his final days as Prime Minister, and probably the final days for his government, he is suggesting that there will be assistance for Canadians and businesses suffering as a result of the trade war.
If and when Canada needs to respond with equivalent tariffs on imports from the United States, those would be paid by Canadian consumers. That's why we will look, as we have in the past, at things that have replacements for Canadian consumers that wouldn't be tariffed. The example from last time was Heinz's ketchup being replaced by French's ketchup, because French's was still using Canadian tomatoes in its ketchup. Having Canadian consumers have alternatives to having to spend tariffs on American inputs is part of how we make sure that we don't bear, or Canadians don't bear, undue costs around tariffs. At the same time, there will be costs for Canadians if we move forward on tariffs to the United States, and that's why we will be there to support and compensate Canadians and Canadian businesses depending on the response we have.
And just before we go any farther, another comment to pop in here. People losing their homes, going hungry, but the good old boys will have their new spaceship toy. That's the one headed for Mars. A lot to be said for that, for sure. And thank you to Earl and Deborah for chiming in tonight and offering up your comments. So, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and this special counsel and our U.S. Ambassador were all huddled in Montebello, and today they had a virtual call with all of the premiers. And coming out of that meeting, if nothing else, it seemed like the premiers were all coming together more in a more cohesive fashion than last week when Danielle Smith refused to sign the communique coming out of the meeting over the fact that oil, as far as the Prime Minister was concerned, oil and natural gas exports would be on the table for taxes or tariffs, counter tariffs, if headed for the U.S. She seems to, I think maybe the language in the room behind the scenes has changed a bit, and they really are working, trying to make sure that they're coming together as a united front. Now, apparently, Smith is still in the U.S., and she's been making the rounds with various petroleum associations and meeting a number of other governors and senators, you name it. I think if they have an opening, she's in through the door. You know what? Full marks to her for that. She's fighting for her province and its resources. But by the same token, let's be careful here, because we don't need to show any sign of weakness or a crack in the overall approach to what we're trying to do here. Your thoughts, Eddie, on that?
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you that she's showing some mettle and leadership in the United States in terms of securing, necessary revenues for Alberta and Canada at the end of the day, and that's sustaining petroleum lines into the United States. And we chatted about this a little earlier, Gary. It could very well be as well. She has to take the best interest of the province into consideration as well, and her constituents. There's a reason why she was put in power, and that was essentially to protect the oil industry in Alberta. Yes, I think she should have signed the agreement for Team Canada in terms of being a key player in our approach to Donald Trump and his tariff threat. You know what? I think it would have behooved her best interest-wise to have signed that, but I think she was probably playing a little bit of politics in terms of securing potential support later on down the line by her not just openly jumping onto the bandwagon and being part of Team Canada and just allowing petroleum to be on the table right off the bat. However, I do think when push comes to shove, Premier Smith is going to take the approach where she will support any initiatives by the federal government to try to tighten the noose or the belt against Donald Trump and what his plans are in terms of, I call it economic warfare, but let's call a spade a spade. It's nothing less than economic warfare right now. I think she'll throw her hat in the ring and put petroleum on the table if and when the time comes for it. But I don't think she wants to put that on the table right from the get-go as yet. She's playing her cards very, very closely to her chest.
Well, I know some of the premiers are now coming out. David Eby in BC, for example, said to people in that province, maybe you should reconsider heading to the States, to get away to the sunshine areas, which a lot of them are covered in snow, apparently, after that storm that ran through in the last day or two. But, you know, instead of going there, find somewhere to spend time in British Columbia, in Canada. Let's start thinking along those ways. Let's start buying more Canadian things. Ask for made in Canada goods. And, you know, now both Doug Ford in Ontario and Eby in BC have said, you know what, we'll pull all of the American liquor off our store shelves if, you know, push comes to shove as well. That's a fair amount of liquor going off the shelves. You know, when you start thinking about it, the various, you know, from in the California wines, like, you know, a lot of the provinces have huge California wine sections in their stores, and you know, they sell a lot of it. But okay, because you know what, we do have some great Canadian wines from you know, the Niagara area of Ontario, the Okanagan area of British Columbia, world-renowned wines, and also you know, other provinces like Quebec has some wineries now that are starting to turn out some, you know, very nice product. In Atlantic Canada, there are a couple of regions where they have some vineyards that are starting to turn out some decent product as well. So, you know, we have the capacity and the ability to be able to do it here. And so maybe, yeah, we should take a focus. However, once again, there's a lot of talk about breaking down the interprovincial trade barriers so that there's a better flow of goods between provinces. Now, we had that same discussion during Trump 1.0 when he imposed tariffs, and, you know, there was discussion about it so that we would never be, you know, our supply line would never be vulnerable like that again if we were trading within. And that faded like a pair of cheap blue jeans within weeks after the tariffs came off, and you know, life went back to normal. We, like, why are we so hesitant to have free-flowing trade between the provinces? I can't get my head around that, and you know, maybe we need to bring in a couple of experts, you know, to talk about it. So anyway, just before we go to our final segment and taking a quick look at the Liberal leadership race, I just want to bring up something. You'll notice a little QR code down in the corner here, and that's buy me a coffee. And if you just hold your phone up, you'll get redirected to the webpage. Night Talk has set up a Buy Me a Coffee page, and if you want to, if you're enjoying the show and you know, you're liking and sharing the show, subscribing to it, thank you so much. If you want to show a little bit of appreciation, and you know, we said the show started from having coffee discussions on Saturdays and other days through the week, and you want to buy us a coffee, then you know, by all means, feel free to do so, and you know, we will appreciate your support in that regard. That's the end of my little commercial. So,
well done.
yeah. So anyway, where are we here? Today's the 22nd. So tomorrow is the final day for anyone interested in running for the Liberal leadership, replacing Justin Trudeau. The few people were quick off the mark to jump in earlier this month. Quebec businessman and former MP Frank Baylis declared he was in. Likewise, Ottawa area MP Chandra Arya and Nova Scotia MP Jaime Batiste also said that they were going to take a run. And earlier today, a former Liberal MP, Ruby Dalla, announced she was in. Now, Dalla's time in public office a few years ago was clouded by controversy, including one surrounding her treatment of live-in caregivers she hired to look after her mother, as well as her Parliament Hill staff. Meantime, last weekend, Well, the week itself ended with 3 of the higher profile people officially launching their campaigns. And it began on Thursday with Mark Carney.
Just as Pierre Poilievre's soundbites won't deliver for Canadians, we can't achieve our full potential with the ideas of the far left. They too often see government as the solution to every problem, with a reflex to spend and subsidize that just treats the symptoms of the problems, but doesn't cure the disease. We can't redistribute what we don't have, and we can't support the vulnerable in our society or defend this great country if we have a weak economy. And I'm here to build the strongest economy for all Canadians.
That's Mark Carney on Thursday. He launched his campaign in Edmonton. Over the weekend, former Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland had her kickoff. And that one, unfortunately for her, was marred by pro-Palestinian protesters.
I am so... I have a beautiful painting of a Canadian flag made by kids.
So once the rowdies were removed, Freeland then managed to deliver her speech.
But as a party, we need to recognize that today, Canadians...
Yep.
But as a party, we need to recognize that today, Canadians want and need us to relentlessly focus on one thing: the economy. Canadians want good jobs, homes they can afford, and great care for their kids. They want a government that is as careful with Canada's money as Canadians are with their own. I will unite every province and territory, business leaders and working people, and Canadians from every walk of life and of every political conviction. I did it during NAFTA. I did it during COVID. And I will do it again.
And Government House Leader Karina Gould launched her campaign.
We have a big challenge ahead of us. Canadians have lost trust in our party. And if we are going to be able to keep building our country, we must rebuild our party. I'm running to be the next leader of the Liberal Party of Canada and your future Prime Minister because I want the same things for me and my family that I want for you and yours. I want you to be safe and feel safe in your home and your community. I want you to have a good job that gives you the confidence and the comfort to know that you can pay the bills that you need to pay. I want you to breathe clean air and drink clean water. And I want you to have access to health care when you need it.
So those are the 3 front runners. Karina Gould was the Government House Leader. She was always, when I've watched her in question period, she was always quite effective. Didn't roll over or crumble under any sort of hard attacks from Pierre Poilievre or any of the other members of the opposition. One thing that stood out to me now, I believe she's the youngest in the race.
Right.
Or she would be the youngest in the race. And I think maybe this will be good training for her. What I did like about her was her ease in speaking to her supporters, and then when she really wanted to deliver a message, known that it was being broadcast nationally, she turned to the camera and she talked to you. I want you. I didn't hear that from Freeland or Carney at all. And I felt like, she was just sitting here having a conversation with me. Carney talked about, about moving the party back more to the center. And I don't disagree with him on that one, that's for sure. I think that's really needed. Freeland, first of all, I hope she kicked some butt in the aftermath of that kook show, because I didn't see any real security there. And yes, she doesn't hold the post anymore, but she is the former finance minister and the former deputy prime minister, and has been a lightning rod during her time in those posts. And, at the prime minister's side, there should have been some contingency planning for an event like this. And to those pro-Palestinian protesters, anyway, they got them out, and then they were banging on the doors and the windows, which, again, why they just didn't call the police and have them come in and, just give them free transport downtown to the Crowbar Hilton is beyond me. Anyway, and then, she's talking about spending your money wisely. Well, Christia, you're the finance minister, even though you did not deliver the fall economic statement. And yes, one of the main reason you resigned was because you were getting into more disputes with the prime minister over spending, but it was still under your watch where the deficit came in $20 billion higher than forecast, and it came in at $60 billion. So spending your money wisely, that's going to be a hard sell. She's carrying a lot of baggage. A lot of people are looking up to her because she stood up to the prime minister and finally forced him into making a decision that he should have had the brains and the guts to make himself a year ago, instead of leaving the country in the state that it's in as far as being perceived, and is really in a weak position from a government standpoint in dealing with a new president who served noticed a long time ago that he was coming in with a
better state of readiness. Just a better state of readiness.
And Carney, wants to move the party back more to the center, and I don't disagree. Wow, talk about going hard left. We have, and it shows the country has suffered as a result of that, between that and the lack of real vision on the part of the leader of the party, the leader of our country. So Carney comes in with baggage because he's been associated with Trudeau, even as an economic advisor. He was brought on back in the summer, and again he was involved, whether he realized it or not, and maybe he didn't, that Trudeau was planning to usher him in as a finance minister after he bounced Freeland. So he comes in with some baggage. And Gould, she has the baggage of being a member of that government, and the battle scars to show for it. But really, I think that this is not her time. I think the next time she'll be even more seasoned, but I could be wrong, because she spoke to people, and she it's like I used to say to people in the newsroom, don't read the story, tell me the story. She looked at me and told me the story. She talked to me. I didn't see that from the others. those are some of my thoughts. And I know you didn't have a chance to watch the speeches in their entirety, but what sort of sense did you get from the clips?
Well, to tell you the truth, if I start with what was her name again? The one at the end, the young one. Sorry.
Karina Gould.
Yeah, Karina Gould. I'm sorry. Still in vacation mode. Forgive me. Yeah, you know what? Absolutely. I got a warm feeling about the genuinity of what she was trying to express. I'm pretty curmudgeon when it comes to that, but she actually did reach me, and I think that's extremely important in terms of how Canadian public react to potential leaders of the country. It's reaching people. That's what we're looking for. And I would 100% agree with you that although there's a tremendous amount of potential, she's held herself extremely well in the opportunities where she had to face public media, as you put in the video clip here, and based on what I've read. I really believe in today's environment and the challenges being imposed on us by the United States of America, that we need something a little more substantiated in terms of experience in dealing with world leaders and individuals like Donald Trump. I don't think she's there yet. Given time, I think she will have a prominent role in Canadian politics, if not an opportunity to be the Prime Minister of Canada. But I don't think now and today would be a good place for her. And I think probably Canadians sense, in my opinion, that maybe she's a little too raw, a little too young to take on that type of a challenge in terms of what we're faced with today. Freeland, yeah, we know that Mr. Trump does not like her for obvious reasons because she played extreme hardball during the last trade negotiations for NAFTA. Doesn't like her one bit, which is which is good in my book. The more he hates somebody on our side of the border, I think the better position we're going to be in dealing with the guy, because it seems to me that's the only thing he seems to respect is a punch in the nose. And I'm really hopeful that whoever ends up as Prime Minister of Canada, even with Mr. Carney, that they stop playing this charmy, warm, teddy bear, fuzzy type of approach and put Mr. Trump in his place. Either you step in his foot, punch him in the nose, or basically tell him in public forum, shut the hell up. Who the hell do you think you are? Have some respect. I'm the leader of a country, a sovereign nation. Have some respect. And that's the side of Mr. Trudeau that I've really started to despise. That he's just putting up this warm, fuzzy bear persona in front of Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump, as you're saying, is taking full advantage of it. He's just biting on the bone. So, yeah, I think Gould needs a little more seasoning. Now is not the time for her, and give her another 4 years, and I certainly would be looking to hear what she has to say, and how she's going to make our country a better place to live in. I would certainly give her a vote if it justified it, and she showed that leadership skill and getting some of that experience over the next 4 years. But right now, I don't think it's a time and place for her.
One quick thing before we go, that is today Polyev and Singh both came out with their thoughts on the latest developments in the ongoing preparations for the trade war. I said it, I think it was last week, Eddie, that to me, they should be coming out and saying to the Prime Minister, look, we're here, it's our country, we're here for you, how can we help?
Any of that happened this week?
Not that I've heard. No. Nope. Ideas about, this, that, and the other thing, but come on, guys, let's show that we really are a country that is, has unity, and that when you take a swipe at us, as a country, we are going to stand together and swipe back. As the Prime Minister in waiting, Poilievre should be really showing leadership and going to Trudeau. And maybe he has behind the scenes. And maybe Singh has.
Oh, there's that.
You know,
There's that.
And Trudeau, being Trudeau with his ego, said no. When in fact he should be saying yes, come on board, and let's, instead of having, like we saw behind Trudeau at in the clips today from the resort, Dominique LeBlanc and Melanie Joly standing there, you know, nodding heads. And I was sitting there watching the clip, and you see that so often with ministers lined up behind the Prime Minister, nodding their heads.
Just nodding.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, do you have to take a class for that? Is that part of your ministerial media training? Like, is it really that difficult? If you had the leaders, Singh, Poilievre, Blanchet, and May standing there with you on stage together.
As part of Team Canada. As part of Team Canada.
Yeah. Because you know what? When you get right down to it, they're in the House of Commons. That's part of Team Canada. You should be inviting them in, and they should be offering. And maybe they have, I don't know. But for whatever, I think that these leaders, including Trudeau, and thank God he's on his way out, I think that they've missed an opportunity, which not only to deal with the trade war threat, as a solid unit, but also to, whether they realize it or not, promote unity within the country. And God knows we need that now too, because we're becoming as divisive as the U.S. is, and a number of other countries. So I don't get why that hasn't happened, but it hasn't. And you know what? I'll just keep bringing it up from time to time, because I'm like a pit bull with a bone too. I'll chew on something when it gets in my way. So, and with that, that's our show for this week. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, because that's going to help us to continue to grow the channel. And it really does make a difference in getting the videos promoted by YouTube and getting them out in front of more eyeballs if you do like and share. And, hopefully subscribe as well.
And you notice, Gary, I'm nodding.
Yeah. And did you take a course?
No.
And also, if you're watching the show on our YouTube channel at some point in the next few days, or even the next week or so, by all means, if there's something you want to comment on, please leave a comment down below, and we'll see it and respond to it. And again, the engagement there also helps to get the channel out in front of more people, and we want to get more people involved in the discussions overall as well. Also, remember, you can buy us a coffee. The link is down below in the description. And if you're thinking, and there's a lot of YouTube videos right now about people over 40, people over 50, people over 60, people over 70, people over 80. There's one old guy in his 80s who started a YouTube channel a couple of months ago, and the guy's monetized, and I forget how many thousand subscribers he has. So if you're thinking about doing that, by all means, jump into it. It's a lot of fun. Eddie and I are having a ball doing this show every week, and hopefully it comes through that you can see that we are having fun with it. And the other thing of it is, as well, if you're thinking about getting into it, I would advise you to, in the description, you'll see a link to Ecamm, which is the software we use for this show. And you can do all sorts of, I'm still playing with it and having fun discovering different things that you can do with it, and just step your production up a notch. By all means, feel free to click away there. So with all of that, Eddie, have you thrown a dart at the dartboard yet to figure out where you're going to be next week?
Actually, I'm more worried about getting back to Fort Lauderdale. As you know, these cruise ships have very, very complex navigation systems, and what I'm afraid of is over the next few days they're going to be going around in circles. Go ahead, Gary. Ask me why.
Why?
Because the navigation systems have no idea where the Gulf of America is. So the ship doesn't know where to go. If you don't hear from me in 3 or 4 days, Gary, send out the Coast Guard.
Will do. Okay, Eddie.
Yeah.
From Montreal, good night, and from
Celebrate
where?
Reflection, good night from Eddie.
Alrighty. Night Talk returns in 7 days. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.